Writing the script was something that came out of complete boredom one day, and I wrote down this idea across 2 pages and left it. Came back that weekend and said I could write a little bit of this.
When we read the script for the first time, I personally was pretty confused with what it was all about and what it was gonna be, because it's a really convoluted story, at least to follow on paper, but when we put it into film, it made a whole lot more sense as we went on.
So I put together a scene or 2, and then didn't touch it for about a month. And me and Eli were actually talking, and we started talking about horror movies and all sorts of things and weird sci-fi music, and I showed him this concept of a guy who's tormented by a life he doesn't know he's living. And the only amount of evidence that he has that he's living that life is the fact that he can see it through his dreams. And that's it. There's nothing more to it.
And I overall just liked the plot of going in within the human mind. Just that chunk of the script really got me hooked on the idea of what it could be. And I definitely was on that dopamine effect of oh my goodness, this has so many potentials to be this, and that it's gonna be the best movie ever, and that this. There was many times where I was like, well, how does this point from here add up to the secondary point? And then it wasn't until the final draft release that I was like, it makes sense.
So as we talked, we decided that we should show the first page or 2 of the script to everybody, and no one could have told me that everybody was on board with actually making it, which was incredible. So I got to work just writing everything, planning out the story, and that's when the employer really became a fleshed out character. And that's when a concept that me and Eli talked about that I don't think many people have noticed about the movie is it follows the 5 stages of grief. It works through the doctor in denial, it works through Annie through anger, it's gonna work up through the mom, which is bargaining. He starts, at that point in the movie, starts bargaining to get things back to normal. And then we have Debby, where he goes into a sort of depressive state, and then Alex, when he finally accepts who he is and confronts the employer. That's the stage of the movie. That's where it moves through. And it's a really fun concept when you pick up on it. I had a lot of fun just adding these little details in every single line that kind of hinted the entire time to what's actually going on, to who the employer really is.
Preparing for filming was definitely different. So what we did for the letter and our other stuff that we've done, we've definitely seen more immediate preparations, and this was very long term. So he had this original idea back Christmas time, and it wasn't until that May that we actually started getting into filming. And I think it was really amazing to see how much time and preparation that he put through it, that I knew that we were completing it.
I was hoping I would get Alan, because I hadn't read for the other characters, and I kind of knew Alan at that point. But the auditions were kind of fun because I kind of got to experiment with how I would act for Alan in the movie.
For casting the characters, I had a few kind of I know who I want to play these roles type thing going on. I knew that I had some kind of image in my head in mind. And for Alan, it was actually the toughest, because Alan was sort of a blank sheet character who doesn't really get a big kind of moment that boom, he evolves into this big hero, or he is this villain. He's just kind of this blank slate that gets kind of shoved around the whole time. And that's what makes him really, either really relatable or just really you kind of want to peer through a lens to watch him at a zoo exhibit type thing. He's not somebody that, you can just everybody's going to relate to this guy. Everybody's going to know what he's going through. It was kind of a half and a half type thing where you could understand some aspects, but not others. And for that, I didn't really have an image for him. So I was really kind of playing around with several people playing it. But one thing that was very different in the writing was the employer. And that's because I wanted Sam to play the employer very early on. I said, I think you have the perfect kind of tone of voice to be able to pull off this creepy guy. And that's something that we went back and forth on it for a long time about why he's right for it. And then the more he started to like Alan, he's like, no, I'm going to do Alan. And I was like, no, but I want you to do the employer. And luckily we found James, who within his first audition, I said, no, we got the guy.
Well, the first day, we did the very first scenes of the movie, and it obviously showed all of us kind of what to expect when we were filming. It was a really awakening experience, because we had kind of signed ourselves up for this movie, and the first day kind of felt like this is what we got to do, and this is how the series of events needs to happen to get a filming day done. But putting all the cameras and all the lighting, and it was a good time. It was a good time.
It was a lot. It was really, really fun to get to see how something that I've always wanted to do actually looks behind the camera. The amount of lights, the amount of cameras, all the gear, how everything has to move. What requesting lines looks like, which we used quite a bit throughout it, because it was our first. But how the whole thing needs to be shot so that when it's cut together, it all works. That was something decently foreign to me. As far as I knew, it was just lights, camera, action, You just do it. There's a lot more kind of sciencing that goes into making sure the perfect shot exists, which is why film is an art, 100%.
There was a huge pressure on myself to really learn the ins and the outs of a camera. It's in my bloodline. My mom does photography and my dad does videography. And so there's this heavy expectation that whatever I have to put out has to be at this certain level, since I already have a head start. So I had a lot of pressure on me, and that I put on myself, that I have to be able to do this perfectly. And I think when I realized that it was okay for me to make mistakes, that it honestly gave some character and perspective to the movie.
What was it like directing and shooting on locations?
So that was a lot of fun. Getting to not have to fudge around with the environment, it's here, it's built for you. People use this every day, and we just get permission to use it. It was really, really nice because we had a lot of space at the office to play around with. One example is in the script, Debby actually does the whole thing where she reaches over the desk to try and shake his hand.
I hated it so much because I was hanging over the cubicle and I was climbing onto the other desk. And it didn't look natural at all because it's like a wall.
And she was standing up on top of a desk to get over it. It wasn't right. So we ended up doing the kind of shot where she kind of peers in. You don't really see all of her just yet, but you kind of get there's an awkward coworker here that eventually becomes someone more important.
The office really was a great place because we got to hang out and drink coffee and just kind of sit around and lounge around. But while we were filming, it was really cool to see this whole new environment that I'd never been in before, and to act in it too was pretty fun.
It was cool because we got to be in a little office building, and we're a bunch of little kids, and we shouldn't be allowed to be there, but we were.
We also had a certain garage, which is sort of infamous now because of just how hot it was in that garage.
Going about the heat. Was the heat bad for me?
It was so hot in there.
The office was pretty hot when we filmed in it, but that garage was just scalding hot.
A lot of those environments were very cramped. So it was 5 bodies in a room. It gets a little heated. Not to mention the foreboding Jason's basement. That garage. By the end of it, we all wanted out of there because we had put up whatever kind of atmosphere we threw in there. We were all sweating, which at the end of the movie looks great because everyone's sweating and it looks like a proper interrogation scene. To film that, it was so rough. And the fact that we did it twice is not something I'm proud of.
Well, before we even started filming, when we got the costumes together, I liked the killer's outfit a lot. It was really cool. Just black trench coat, black everything, yeah. I got to put it on at some point, and then it was just it's like you just become a shadow, you're not even there. It's kind of how he is in the film too. The kill scenes were really cool, and it kind of puts you into the character of the killer a lot. But the kill scenes were really fun.
For the first one we tried to do, I liked hitting the door a lot though. I wish we could do that again. The second one, I liked it because it was like a lot more like gory as we could get it, you know, with like our limited stuff. And also I got to be covered in blood and take a few like photos of myself and I'm just covered in blood.
Oh, I loved my death scene. That was one of my favorite things to do. I loved the whole intention behind the big reveal that Alan was the killer. Spoilers. But I really liked how he's begging and pleading in this moment that he just needs to turn his life around, that he's only a couple words from just saving his own life, but there's such this dark intent within the killer that just is like no mercy. And honestly, we went over top of the blood and all the effects that I think we did more than, I mean, except for, you know, Debbie's death, but it was so much fun messing around with all our toys, you know? Yeah.
So editing took a really long time. I don't think we had the finished first cut done till about midway through September.
The first, like, my first full cut of the movie, it was, I don't think it had audio when I first watched it. It didn't have music or anything. It didn't have a lot of the atmosphere or the ambience, but watching it kind of took me back through all the days that we filmed. And I saw those parts in the cameras on set, but I had never really seen it just on a screen. And then put it all together, it made the story make sense.
It was a long editing process of just going through audio, picking the right sound effects, getting that mixed right. The visual stuff took a long time, but for the most part, the visual stuff is straightforward. And color grading is probably about my favorite thing because it was like the dessert to the end of a meal. It was like something I could actually look forward to when I finished doing all the audio for a scene and getting it actually looking the way I want it to look. So it was that was really fun to do. But most everything else was a lot of setback, a lot of time. The rendering was awful. That was a whole thing.
Marketing the film has been our biggest struggle. I think it's even a struggle for us to this day because there's such a specific target audience for like our stuff that I think it hasn't reached, you know, the mainstream yet. I feel like modern movies lay on this sequences of events that's repetitive in every movie. And I think what me and Matthew have done and are going to do in our future films is add a layer of complexity to it, to add more deeper meaning. The story isn't just what stays on the script, it goes past it onto a whole lore book of just ideas and concepts. And I think it's up to the viewer and the audience to go watch it, not just once, but multiple times and interpret all the different things that go on. Because like it's been said before, it's all intentional.
There wasn't really a major deleted scene that I ever did. There wasn't really any of that. Most of it worked out because the story is so fluid in the way every scene kind of ties into another. So it was really, you could remove like a line of dialogue here and just trim it down. But there wasn't ever like, I didn't ever feel the need to completely cut a scene. I never felt the need that any of this actually really needs to go. But there is one scene that I really regret not adding in, and I replaced it with a scene that now I feel like it was my biggest blunder with the whole movie. Doing the slap scene where Debbie slaps him and then he glitches to the real world where he finds out he's the killer. Originally, I had planned to want to do a dinner scene there where they do actually go on the dinner date and they get into a fight there. And that's when, you know, because he kind of like starts telling that none of this restaurant's real, this food isn't here and none of this stuff. And she kind of goes crazy. So largely the amount of dialogue that would have been there would have been the same, just the location would have been better. And I would have loved to do that. But most everything else flowed pretty nicely and worked pretty well. And the whole kind of idea of the movie peering in on this guy's life worked really well. All the scenes with the quote other side, with the real world, that was all really, really fun because it did feel really grimy. All the stuff in the parking garage where we're back at today felt really, really dirty and run down and this neon vibe that all this dystopian stuff kind of has, which was really, really great to see it kind of in the flesh in the final product.
So the premiere was super cool. It took us a little bit of time to figure out all the logistics for it, but I didn't do the logistics, but it definitely took some time. But the premiere was super fun, and I got to see a lot of people that I like knew, and we'd all been hyping up this movie that we've been making, and no one really knew what to expect. But we showed them, and it really all panned out to be a super cool event.
It was wonderful. I was super excited to finally have my hands free of a big project, and for everybody to actually see it. I think I had seen it at that point at least 100 times. Everyone else has seen it probably like 3 or 4 or something like that. We screened it a few times in its very early phases when it was a lot rougher, but to have the finished thing ready to go was a breath of fresh air. And it was super exciting to get to talk to everybody and go, no, you're gonna love this is gonna be great. Everyone, dressed up for a fun premiere. We had a lot of people go, which was fantastic.
I'm pretty certain I remember, like, my little brother was like he was like low-key scared watching it. That's all I can remember about like people talking to me after about it.
The biggest thing I will never forget that my dad told me at the end of the premiere was, he said, Eli, about 40 to 60% of the movie was like, okay, mediocre, like you just got some still frames, a little bit, 30% being, just like, okay, that's interesting, how do we make it better? And then there was that 10% that was like, because I'm so advanced in doing videography, he says someone who's new gives this character and this life to this. And it's something just a filmmaker wouldn't think of. And so he said that was the main reason it made it intricate and that it made it special.
Any form of art, I know musicians do this a lot. As a musician myself, they have a tendency to just self-critique on end, like to no end. We just do this because you always want to find a way to make yourself better, to always kind of keep up with other artists and competition around you, which is what makes doing this kind of work so exciting, is seeing how everybody else does it and how that influences us. But that also comes with the downsides that we are really, really hypercritical. So I found myself being hypercritical of everything sitting there. But the moment everyone started clapping at the end of it and the credits were rolling, and I heard the theme music come back on, I was like, no, it doesn't even matter. And I had an absolute blast getting to talk to everybody about what it was like shooting it and what my favorite scene was compared to theirs. A lot of people talked about how great the music was, which it is phenomenal. I love that music. It was a really great experience getting to be in an actual movie theater and show a movie that I made. That was really great. I think everybody had a great time, which is what's important there.
So this movie's really changed my life. When people saw Other Side, majority of them thought it was filmed on an iPhone, and they had no expectations for it whatsoever. And so when my dad finally was like, wait, he might actually follow in my footsteps, he offered so many jobs for me, and I picked up wedding videography pretty quick.
It was a super fun experience, and it kind of opened the door for me for acting. I feel like I could at least explore acting in the future. Of course, like, my acting isn't top notch. It wasn't. I don't think it was the best it could have been, but I think acting could definitely be a path that I take, because I found it really fun, and I kind of found like a thing for myself in that. So acting was great, and I'm really proud of the work we all put in, and it was a really fun experience.
But as for me and Matthew, I think that there's something in Matthew's brain that's different than every other director. I think there's a way that he layers his construct of just this imagination behind the actual script, that I just want to be there for the ride to make it. Like, all I want to do is to be able to take his ideas and put it on a screen. And I think essentially that's where Other Side starts. And I think that's where Sawmill Studios will start to track towards. So for the future, I hope that we can take more of Matthew's brain and put it on a TV. However, right now, I think we just start getting our basics and our base and our foundation.
As far as things go, I keep writing, I keep making new stories, I keep pitching them, and we looked at our group continues to want to do more because we found that we like this. We found that we're decent at this, and we want to keep learning it, and we want to keep bringing new people on, professionals, amateurs, whoever is interested. We want to keep bringing them in. because that's my goal. Is I want to keep telling stories. I want to keep making them, and that's something that's never going to stop till the day I die. Pretty much, is I'm going to keep doing this because I think it's fun, and the world really needs it. The world really benefits from it. People enjoy this stuff, and that's why we have art. That's why we have music. That's why we have film and television. It's something that people can enjoy, relate to, talk about, and that's what the world really needs. So as far as my future is, I plan to keep creating and keep going wherever I am.
I'll leave it on one note, is you only make something go as far as you want it to. So when you put yourself at a level of I can't or I won't, then that's as far as you're gonna go. So the next time you wanna make something or do something or try something, go with the expectation that you will and that you can. And who knows, maybe you will.